My name is Chris, and my birth name is Cristian Patiño Espinosa. I was born in Mexico. My family originates in Tamazula, Jalisco. And my parents migrated to the U.S. as migrant workers. I ended up being in Mexico instead of the U.S. because my mother got sick and she passed away in Mexico, in Tijuana, Mexico. So when she passed away, I ended up being put in an orphanage with my brothers, sisters, my two brothers and one of my sisters. I was adopted by an American family that came to the orphanage to provide benefits and to help out the children at that orphanage that was Casa de los Niños in Tijuana. They attempted to adopt me through the orphanage, and my biological father, he made a big issue about it because he didn't want nobody to take us, but at the same time he didn't want to take us. So he put a stop to that, and in the end he demanded money in order to take me and my younger brother. And that's the way I was kind of sold off. After my adoption, shortly after adoption, my adopted parents, they fell into financial hard times and subsequent divorce. Part of that divorce was because of my adopted mother no longer wanted me and my siblings and wanted to send us back to the orphanage. At this time I was 8 years old and had already been with them for the last 5 years. So they divorced, and we ended up moving to the inner city area of Sacramento, probably one of the worst neighborhoods in Sacramento, in the Del Paso Heights area, and that's where I was raised. Eventually I ended up getting into some trouble as a juvenile due to a lot of the issues I was having, being adopted, being a brown kid in a white family, being a brown kid in a brown neighborhood but raised by a white family and not really fitting in. So I started kind of rebelling, and I really started rebelling when I realized that my adopted father was not going to do anything to adjust my legal status or to help me get into school or go to school or do anything. So I started feeling hopeless, and that my future was not looking very bright, that I didn't have a future. This led me to gravitate towards inner city gangs and petty crimes, and I ended up being put into a juvenile hall. And so by the time I did earn my way out and had started to make those changes and started to deal with the issues I had growing up, I was dealt a second blow of not being able to go home, and I was sent to the INS immigration, where they began deportation proceedings against me. So I went to court a few times, and I ended up missing one of my court dates, and they ordered me deported. And some 15 years later, that order was enforced. So my first day in Tijuana was very eventful, and I had a few run-ins with the Mexican police, who were one of the most corrupt agencies I've ever encountered, and a lot of discrimination against me because of my appearance and inability to speak proper Spanish. So fearing for my safety, I fled back across the border, which was very easy for me because of my appearance and my proficiency in English. And so I went home back to Sacramento, and for the next five years plus, I began to rebuild my life. At this time I had totally changed from the troubled youth that I was, and I was doing a lot of community service work, trying to give back to the community that I had helped to damage. The best accomplishment that I can say I had is I was able to have a child. Her name is Cuauhtli, and she's going to be 3. And growing up without parents, I always felt it was my duty that when I did have a child to be fully responsible and be there for that child 100%, and to help rear and nurture that child in a correct and positive manner. That was pretty much taken from me with got deported again in 2018. I was a victim of a crime that I reported, and thinking that the police were going to assist me, they came to my house, and immediately, because of my appearance of long hair and tattoos and being a person of color, they automatically assumed I was the perpetrator of the crime. What they did is, after the situation was dealt with, the police officers, 2 female police officers, they turned me into the immigration, which was a violation of our sanctuary city laws and policies. The government had no consideration for my daughter. So now that she's in the situation of possibly repeating that same cycle that I was trying to break, that cycle that I was in and that her mother was in, of not having parents in our lives or anybody to really help guide us and be there for us. And I miss her a lot. It's the greatest battle is battling my memories and my aspirations for her. So I hope that one day we'll be reunited. I know we will, and I'm working towards that now.